My stitches were still fresh from the C-section when my husband tossed a $20 bill at my feet. He told me to take the bus in the pouring rain, all to protect the leather seats of his luxury SUV. The laughter they're sharing in that fancy restaurant will soon be paid for with tears of blood. Before this story begins, please write in the comments what city you're watching from. Don't forget to like and subscribe so this channel can continue to grow and bring you even more compelling stories. The late afternoon wind in lower Manhattan carried the scent of wet asphalt, a sign that a heavy downpour was about to soak the city that never sleeps. But the chill in the air was nothing compared to the cold spreading through my entire body. I stood frozen in the hospital's pickup area, clutching a thick bundle of blankets containing my tiny, 3-day-old baby, a sharp pain still seared across my lower abdomen. The stitches from my C-section, not yet fully healed, seemed to scream in protest every time I shifted my weight even an inch. It felt like 1,000 needles were piercing my skin, pulling at the flesh that had just been sewn back together. This should have been the happiest moment of a woman's life. Going home with her newborn child, welcomed by her husband's warm embrace and the smiling faces of family. But my reality was the exact opposite. I stood alone, accompanied only by a large duffel bag full of dirty clothes at my feet. The nurse who had wheeled me out had already gone back inside after I insisted my husband was just around the corner. I didn't want them to see how pathetic my life was. I didn't want to see the pity in their eyes when they realized not a single family member had been with me during the life-threatening delivery. My eyes lit up for a moment when I saw a gleaming black Cadillac Escalade turn into the driveway. It was my husband's car, the one he'd bought 6 months ago, claiming it was necessary to uphold his image as the CEO of his tech startup. My heart eased a little. At least he came. At least he remembered that our son and I were being discharged today. I tried to smile, bracing against the pain in my stomach, ready to greet him. I pictured him getting out, jogging over to me, taking the heavy duffel bag, and guiding me into the cool, comfortable vehicle. The SUV stopped directly in front of me. The front passenger window slowly rolled down, but it wasn't a look of concern or a loving smile that I saw. It was my mother-in-law, Sharon, her face set in that arrogant expression I knew so well. In the back, I could see my sister-in-law, Jessica, engrossed in her phone, not even glancing in my direction or at her newborn nephew. And in the driver's seat, my husband, Ethan, stared at me with a flat expression as if I were a stranger holding up traffic. Ethan didn't get out of the car. He didn't even turn off the engine. The quiet purr of the luxury vehicle was a stark contrast to my own heart, which was beginning to pound with a sense of dread. "Ethan," I called out softly, trying to take a step closer. "Thank goodness you're here. My legs are trembling, and my stitches really hurt." Ethan glanced at me from behind his designer sunglasses, then his eyes flickered to the pristine, beige leather interior of his car. He clicked his tongue, a gesture he always made when he was annoyed. "You expect to get in here wearing those shabby clothes?" he asked curtly, without unlocking the doors. I was stunned. I looked down at my simple but clean cotton dress. "Ethan, this is a clean dress. It's all I brought. Please just open the door. The baby will get cold," I pleaded, my voice weak. The baby in my arms began to squirm, perhaps sensing my tension. Suddenly, my mother-in-law's sharp voice cut through the air from the front seat, making a few people in the lobby turn to look at us. "Honestly, Olivia, do you have a brain in your head? Look at this car. Ethan just had it detailed. It cost hundreds of dollars to get it this pristine. You just gave birth. You probably smell like antiseptic and blood. Not to mention if that baby spits up or has a diaper leak, it would ruin these expensive leather seats." I gaped at her. "But Sharon, this is your grandson. This is Ethan's son. Are you saying we can't even ride in his own father's car?" "Oh, spare us the drama," my sister-in-law chimed in from the back, cracking her window open slightly. "We're on our way to a celebratory dinner. Ethan just closed a huge deal. We're all dressed up and smell nice. If you get in, you'll make the whole car smell musty. It's just gross." Tears welled in my eyes, not from postpartum hormones, but from a profound heartache that stabbed me in the chest. I looked at my husband, hoping he would defend us, hoping he would say anything a father and a husband should. but my hope was shattered into a million pieces when Ethan reached into his shirt pocket. He pulled out a crumpled $20 bill and tossed it out the window. It fluttered in the wind for a moment before landing in a puddle of dirty rainwater near my feet. "There, take it," my husband said coldly. "Just take the MTA bus home. The bus stop is just a short walk from here. That's more than enough for the fare. You'll even have change for a slice of pizza if you're hungry." Axplay. I stared at the money on the wet pavement, then back at the face of the man I had married 2 years ago. "Ethan, how could you? I just had surgery. I can barely walk. And you want me to carry our baby onto a crowded city bus during rush hour? Stop being so spoiled," my mother-in-law snapped. Women in the old days were back in the fields the day after giving birth. They didn't whine and complain like you. You're just a freeloader living off my son, constantly causing problems. Be grateful he's giving you transportation money. Don't push your luck. Just get going before it starts pouring, my husband said impatiently. Besides, Mom and Jess are coming to dinner. The car's full. There's no room for you and all your junk. But I knew perfectly well that his Escalade had 3 rows of seats. There was plenty of empty space in the back, but it was clear there was no space for me in their hearts, let alone in that car. They didn't see me as a wife or a daughter-in-law, but as a parasite to be cast aside. "Ethan, please." My voice trembled, tears now streaming down my cheeks. It hurts so much. "Roll up the window, Ethan. It's getting humid. The AC is escaping," my mother-in-law commanded, without a shred of compassion. Without hesitation, my husband pressed the power window button. The tinted glass rose slowly, separating my gray, desolate world from their comfortable, luxurious one. A moment later, the SUV pulled away, leaving me standing there, motionless. Its tires drove through the puddle, splashing grimy water onto the hem of my dress. All I could do was stare at the taillights as they disappeared into the distance, carrying away the father of the child I held in my arms. As if on cue, the sky began to weep for my fate. Raindrops started to fall, one by one, then turned into a torrential downpour within seconds. People in the lobby scurried for cover or ran to their waiting cars. I was shaken from my stupor. I couldn't just stand here. The hospital security guard would surely ask me to move along. With what little strength I had left, I bent down painfully, stifling a scream as the stitches pulled to pick up the soaked $20 bill. It wasn't because I needed the money. This bill was worthless to me. But I took it as a silent witness, as proof of how little I was worth in their eyes today. I clenched the wet bill tightly in my right hand. With my left arm, I held my baby close, shielding him from the rain with the edge of my cardigan. Then, gasping for breath, I grabbed the handle of the large duffel bag beside me. It was so heavy. Every step I took was torture. My right foot moved, and a throb of pain shot through my abdomen. My left foot moved, and the agony spread to my back. The distance to the bus stop was only about 1/4 of a mile from the hospital gate, but to me, on that afternoon, it felt like 1,000 miles. The rain grew heavier, drenching my frail body. I didn't care that I was soaked to the bone. All I could think about was keeping my baby warm. People hurried past me with umbrellas, giving me looks that ranged from curiosity to disgust, and some with pity, though none offered to help. "It's okay, my love," I whispered to my little one, who had started to cry loudly from the cold and the noise of the storm. "Your father is a cruel man, but I promise you, this is the last time we will ever be treated like trash." Each step I took on that slippery sidewalk was accompanied by a vow whispered in my heart. They thought I was just Olivia, a poor orphan girl who got lucky marrying Ethan, a rising young entrepreneur. They had no idea who I really was. They didn't know that the tech startup Ethan was so proud of was only afloat because of a silent, massive infusion of cash from my father. They didn't know that the Escalade they were riding in, the luxury apartment they lived in, and the lavish lifestyle they flaunted were all thanks to the connections I provided. I had kept silent all this time. I had hidden my identity as the sole daughter of the owner of Davenport Holdings, one of the largest real estate and mining conglomerates in the country, all because I wanted to be loved for who I was. I wanted Ethan to love me as Olivia, not as the heiress to a multi-billion-dollar fortune. But today, under the cruel torrent of a New York City storm, my eyes were wide open. That sincerity never existed. There was only greed and arrogance. I dragged my feet up the stairs of the pedestrian overpass toward the bus stop. My breath came in ragged gasps, and my vision started to blur. I could feel postpartum bleeding increasing from the physical exertion, but I didn't stop. I wouldn't collapse here. I would survive. I would get home. And after that, I would make them pay for every single raindrop that touched my son's face this afternoon. The crosstown bus was packed shoulder to shoulder. The smell of sweat, cheap perfume, and damp clothing filled the air, chilled by the blasting central AC. I was squeezed near the door, desperately trying to create a small pocket of space amidst the crush of tired commuters heading home. No one offered a priority seat. Those were already occupied by people pretending to be asleep or staring intently at their phones, oblivious to a soaking wet woman holding a newborn and grimacing in pain from a recent surgery. The pain in my abdomen intensified every time the bus lurched to a stop or shuddered over a pothole. My legs were shaking violently. It felt as if my bones could no longer support my weight. Rainwater dripped from the end of my cardigan, pooling on the floor of the bus, making me feel even smaller and more pathetic. Thankfully, my baby had fallen back asleep after I had briefly nursed him in a corner of the bus shelter, now protected and warm inside my thin jacket. "Ma'am, you can sit here." Suddenly, an elderly man in simple clothes stood up from his seat. He was carrying a large sack, which he had placed at his feet. He looked worn and far from wealthy, but his heart was infinitely more noble than my well-dressed husband's. "Thank you, sir. Thank you so much," I said, my voice hoarse as I fought back tears. I sat down slowly, wincing as my back touched the hard plastic seat. The man gave me a genuine smile and moved to stand by a pole. How ironic. A stranger, who likely struggled to make ends meet, had more compassion than the man who was supposed to love and protect me. I tried to regulate my breathing, resting my head for a moment against the fogged-up bus window. Outside, the lights of Manhattan's skyscrapers began to glitter, their arrogant glow seeming to mock the poverty below. My hand reached into my bag and pulled out my smartphone, its screen cracked at the corner from when Jessica had thrown it in a tantrum because I hadn't topped up her data plan last month. An Instagram notification popped up. My husband's account was live. My heart fluttered. I shouldn't open it. I should just focus on getting home, but the pain in my heart needed validation. I needed to see just how cruel they could be, so that any last shred of doubt about destroying them would vanish completely. My trembling finger tapped the notification. My phone screen lit up with a scene that was a 180-degree contrast to my current situation. It showed the interior of a high-end, all-you-can-eat steakhouse in Soho, famous for its exorbitant prices. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling. Steam rose from a tabletop grill laden with sizzling, high-marbled Wagyu beef, an array of fresh seafood, and organic vegetables. The camera panned to my husband, Ethan, who was laughing heartily, holding a pair of tongs. His face was flushed and shiny from the heat, and his own glee. Next to him, my mother-in-law was fanning herself after taking a spicy bite, but her face was beaming with triumph. Jessica, my sister-in-law, was filming, occasionally turning the camera on herself. "What's up, everyone? We're back with the Ethan experience." Jessica's shrill voice came through my single earbud. "Tonight, we're celebrating my big bro Ethan's latest success. The deal is closed, the cash is flowing, so we're eating good. Woohoo!" I saw the viewer count was quite high, around 300 people. Ethan loved to cultivate an image of a successful young entrepreneur on social media. A false, fragile image. "Ethan, you're the man for treating everyone." Jessica read a comment from a viewer. "Of course he is. My brother is the real deal, not some poser." She paused dramatically. Then the camera swiveled to my mother-in-law. "Sharon, how's the steak? Better than your favorite daughter-in-law's cooking at home?" My mother-in-law let out a mocking laugh, her mouth still full. "Ha ha. Oh, Jess, don't even compare Japanese of 5 Wagyu to Olivia's bland casseroles. It's like comparing heaven and earth. Besides," she added, "I'm so glad she's not here. She just brings the mood down. You know how she is, always gloomy, probably bad for business. Now that she's gone, the air feels fresher, and the food tastes better." My chest tightened, not from asthma, but from a rage that was boiling up inside me. They were talking about me as if I were a plague. Ethan chimed in with a chuckle. Hey Mom, don't be like that. I feel a little bad for her. She's probably getting soaked on a bus right now. She said she wanted to be independent. Well, we're testing her independence. Besides, she doesn't fit into our circle. Her style is so provincial. She doesn't know how to act when I take her to meet clients or to fancy places like this. It's just embarrassing. So true, Ethan, Jessica exclaimed. Plus, she's always telling these stories about being the daughter of some rich guy who's just living a simple life. So delusional, right, guys? Claims her dad owns mines or something, but she shops the clearance rack at Target. What a liar. Good thing my brother is so patient with his useless wife. She's just a pretty face, and even that's probably washed off in the rain by now. Ha ha ha. My tears stopped flowing. This time, they dried up instantly, replaced by a fire burning in my chest. Enough. I had been patient enough. I had humbled myself enough to respect a husband who clearly had no self-respect. I had suppressed my own ego as a sole heiress for a love that turned out to be a complete sham. They called me a liar. They called me delusional. Fine. I would show them who was truly delusional. I would show them who was living a lie. I closed the Instagram app with a sharp tap. My hands, still trembling, were no longer shaking from sadness, but from an adrenaline-fueled courage. I searched for one name in my phone's contacts, a name I hadn't called in 2 years, honoring my promise to Ethan to live independently. Mr. Harrison, I whispered as I pressed the call button. It only rang twice before a deep, authoritative voice answered. Miss Olivia, my goodness, you finally called. Your father and mother have been worried sick, especially knowing you just gave birth. How are you, ma'am? Where are you? I can have a car pick you up immediately. I took a deep breath, fighting back a sob so my voice would sound firm. Mr. Harrison, don't send a car just yet. I'm on my way to the safe house. I need your help right now. This is an emergency. Mr. Harrison's tone instantly shifted, becoming sharp and serious. He was my father's right-hand man, the most trusted person in charge of all our family's assets and affairs. Tell me what to do, Miss Olivia. Who has troubled you? I looked at my own pale reflection in the bus window. Freeze everything, Harrison, I ordered coldly. Freeze every asset my father provided for Ethan and his company under my name. The supplementary credit cards he holds, access to the corporate accounts funded by my father, the company car, the apartment whose lease is paid by my father's office, cut it all off. Now, this very second. There was a moment of silence on the other end, then the sound of rapid typing on a keyboard. Understood, ma'am. Are you certain? This will have an immediate and catastrophic effect on his business operations, on Ethan. I'm certain, Harrison, I said, emphasizing every word. And one more thing, make sure every single debit and credit card he is carrying right now is completely blocked. Flag them as lost or stolen so they can't be manually approved by the merchant. I want him to experience a humiliation he will never forget for the rest of his life. Consider it done, ma'am. Within 2 minutes, all financial access for Ethan Williams linked to Davenport Holdings will be completely paralyzed. Anything else? That's all for now. Thank you. I'll call again when I've arrived. I ended the call. The corners of my mouth lifted into a bitter, cynical smile. I opened Instagram again, but this time, not to watch, but to witness the beginning of their downfall. On the screen, Ethan had just raised his hand, signaling a waiter for the check. His face was still arrogant, full of self-confidence. He pulled out his leather wallet and drew out a sleek, black card. The card he boasted was his Amex Centurion, earned through his own hard work. In reality, it was a supplementary card linked to my primary, unlimited limit account. All right, everyone, time to pay up, Ethan said to the camera with a smug grin. Eat as much as you want, don't even look at the prices. Jessica cheered. Thanks, big bro. The waiter arrived with a portable card machine. Ethan casually slid the card into the slot. I held my breath, counting down in my head. 3, 2, 1. On the live feed, the waiter's expression changed to one of confusion. He tried swiping the card again, then one more time. Ethan's smug look began to falter. What's the problem? Is your machine broken? Ethan asked, his voice rising. I'm sorry, sir. The card was declined. The waiter replied, loud enough to be heard on the live stream. What? That's impossible. Try it again. It has a multi-million-dollar limit, Ethan snapped. I let out a small, hollow laugh that was nonetheless satisfying. Enjoy your dessert, my dear husband, I thought to myself. The bus I was on continued its journey through the rain, carrying me away from a painful past and toward a future where I was the one in control. The game had just begun. The sound of rain drumming on the roof of the bus shelter competed with the roar of the departing bus engine. I sat alone on the cold metal bench, pulling my thin jacket tighter to shield my baby from the spray. But my eyes remained glued to my cracked phone screen. There, on that small display, the real drama was unfolding, a tragicomedy starring my husband. On the Instagram live feed, the atmosphere in the premium Soho steakhouse had grown tense. The wide, self-satisfied grin Ethan wore while devouring $1 million tomahawk steak was now fading. The waiter, standing politely by their table, still held the card machine, but his expression was becoming uneasy. "I'm very sorry, sir." The waiter's voice was clear as Jessica, intending to capture a moment of prestigious payment, had moved the phone closer. "The card has been declined. The transaction was rejected by the issuing bank." Ethan laughed, but it was a hollow, forced sound meant to cover his embarrassment in front of the camera and his mother. "You must be kidding. That's a Centurion Black card. It can't be declined. Swipe it again. Your machine's signal is probably weak because of the rain." "Of course, sir. I'll try one more time," the waiter said patiently. I held my breath, my heart pounding with a strange mix of satisfaction and pain. In the livestream's comment section, Ethan's followers were starting to buzz. "LOL declined? Did the CEO forget to pay his bill?" One wrote. "Let's be positive, guys. Maybe the chip is just greasy from the steak," another quipped sarcastically. On screen, the waiter shook his head again. The indicator light on the machine flashed red. "It's the same, sir. Do not honor. This card cannot be used." Ethan's face turned beet red. Veins bulged in his neck. His sky-high pride was being publicly tested. He roughly fumbled with his branded leather wallet and pulled out 2 more cards, a platinum Amex and a gold Visa. "Here, try one of these. One's Chase, the other's Capital One. They can't all be broken." And explains. Jessica was still filming, but her hand was starting to shake. "Ethan, what's going on? This is so embarrassing with everyone watching," she whispered frantically. "Shut up, Jessica. It has to be a system-wide bank failure," Ethan snapped. The waiter tried the second card. Declined. The third card. Declined. The mood at the table shifted from annoyance to outright panic. My mother-in-law, Sharon, who had been busy picking her teeth, now glared at him. She slammed her napkin onto the table. "Ethan, what is the meaning of this? Don't you dare embarrass me. We can't even pay for dinner? You said your deal just brought in millions." "Just be patient, Mom. This has to be a technical error," Ethan said, beads of sweat forming on his slick forehead. He stared at the card machine as if it were a monster about to devour him whole. "Ma'am, call your manager. All of your machines are garbage. I want to pay with my money." "Why are you making it so difficult?" The restaurant manager, a middle-aged man in a sharp suit, approached their table. I recognized the restaurant. It was one of my father's favorites for hosting international business partners. Their service standards were impeccable, and they wouldn't tolerate a scene that disturbed other guests. "Good evening, sir. Is there a problem I can help you with?" the manager asked, his tone calm but firm. "Your machines are broken," Ethan accused, his voice rising and causing diners at nearby tables to turn and look. "I've tried 3 different cards, and they were all declined. My balance is high enough to buy this entire restaurant." The manager offered a thin, polite but deadly smile. "My apologies, sir, but we just processed transactions for tables 12 and 8 with this very machine, and both went through smoothly. If the machine reads declined or call issuer, the issue lies with your card's issuing bank, not our equipment." Ethan was speechless. Checkmate. Jessica quickly ended the live stream. My phone screen went dark, but I didn't need visuals anymore. I could imagine the rest with perfect clarity, as if I were sitting in the empty chair beside them. I quickly opened my banking app and checked the status of the supplementary cards Ethan held. All of them were flagged in red, blocked by cardholder. I smiled, but the show wasn't over. I knew Ethan rarely carried much cash. He considered it old-fashioned and dirty. Their bill for Wagyu, truffles, and expensive wine had to be at least $5,000 or $6,000. A few minutes later, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Mr. Harrison. He had sent a photo. Apparently, Mr. Harrison had eyes and ears everywhere, or perhaps he had simply hacked the restaurant's security cameras. I didn't care how. The photo showed Ethan arguing with the manager, his face pale and desperate. The next photo showed him taking off the Rolex Submariner he was always flaunting and handing it to the manager. Then a text from Mr. Harrison came through. Your husband attempted to use his watch as collateral, as all his debit and credit cards are non-functional. The restaurant manager refused. I frowned. Why refuse? A Rolex was worth tens of thousands, far more than their dinner bill. The next message arrived. The manager recognized the watch as a high-quality counterfeit. Ethan was publicly shamed for attempting to pawn off a fake. He has been forced to leave his driver's license and sign a promissory note. A laugh escaped my lips, a sound mixed with tears. All this time, Ethan had belittled me for my cheap clothes and unbranded bags. He always flaunted that watch as a symbol of his success. This is an investment, Liv. You can judge a man's success by his watch, he used to say. It turned out he had been lying to me and everyone else. The watch he bought with the monthly allowance I gave him, the one he claimed was worth as much as a car, was just a fake. The rest of the money must have gone to his lavish spending, or perhaps to another woman. On the bus, now moving again, I held my son tighter. See, my love, your father is reaping what he sowed. His shame wasn't from having no money, but from having his mask of wealth ripped off in public. The image of Ethan begging, of Sharon hiding her face with her handbag, and of Jessica pretending not to know her own brother danced in my head. The rain outside intensified, as if nature itself was washing away the family's facade of lies. But this was only the beginning. Deactivated credit cards were just a small pinch. The real storm awaited them on their drive home. I leaned my head against the vibrating bus window. The post-op pain in my abdomen was still excruciating, but the pain in my heart was slowly starting to heal. Not with medicine, but by watching justice begin to unfold, justice served by my own hand. I closed my eyes for a moment, imagining their journey home, which was about to become a living hell. The atmosphere inside the Cadillac Escalade would be anything but comfortable, despite its plush leather seats and perfect climate control. Through the vehicle tracking app connected to the Davenport family's security system, a feature my father secretly had installed in every vehicle he purchased, including the one Ethan used, I could listen to a real-time audio feed of the car's interior. It was a security feature meant for kidnapping scenarios, but tonight, it was my personal tool for listening to my husband's world crumble. The sound of heavy rain and distant thunder was muffled by the luxury car's soundproofing, but the noise inside was far louder and more terrifying. How could you, Ethan? Sharon's voice was a high-pitched shriek, shattering the tense silence. I have never been so embarrassed in my entire life. Do you know who was at the next table? Marge Harrison, from the charity board. What if she spreads rumors at the next gala? Oh, did you hear? Sharon's son eats like a king but can't pay his bills. It's did nest. Yeah, Ethan, that was awful, Jessica whined. I had to delete my whole Instagram story. The engagement was amazing, too. Now my image is ruined because your credit cards are fake or something. And you got caught with a knockoff watch? Ugh, so cringe. Both of you, shut up! Ethan's roar filled the car, making the speaker on my phone crackle. There was a loud thud as he slammed his fist against the steering wheel. His breathing was heavy and ragged. You think I'm not freaking out? Huh? He screamed in frustration. I don't understand why all my cards were blocked at once. They worked this morning when I got gas. This has to be sabotage. Someone is jealous of our success. Suddenly, Ethan's phone rang. It wasn't a normal ringtone, but a specific one he used for high-priority business calls. Mr. Coleman, hello. Ethan's voice instantly became smooth and sycophantic. Good evening, sir. What a surprise to hear from you this late. Any good news about the Series B funding? I listened intently. Mr. Coleman was one of the lead investors in Ethan's startup. Of course, Mr. Coleman was also my father's business associate, who had invested on my father's orders, not because Ethan was some business prodigy. Mr. Coleman's voice was faint, but his tone was cold and decisive. "Evening, Ethan. I'm calling to inform you that we are withdrawing our entire investment commitment, effective immediately. The official notice is already in your email." "What?" Ethan's voice cracked. But why, sir? The project is underway. We need that funding for next month's payroll. If you pull out, we'll collapse." "That is no longer my concern. A recent internal audit revealed your company carries an unacceptably high level of risk. Furthermore, the recommendation from your primary guarantor, Mr. Epsi Davenport, has been rescinded. Good night." The line went dead. Hello, Mr. Coleman?" Ethan yelled into his silent phone. "What was that, Ethan? Why did the investor pull out?" Sharon asked frantically. "What about the money for my mortgage payment?" Before Ethan could answer, his phone rang again. This time, it was from his office number. "What now?" he barked into the phone. "Mr. Williams, it's a disaster." His secretary's hysterical voice was so loud I could hear it clearly. "The office is being raided by the IRS and the leasing agency. They're seizing the computers and servers. They say there's evidence of tax evasion and 6 months of unpaid rent on the building. Where are you? They're asking for you. They brought the police, sir." I heard the screech of tires on wet asphalt as Ethan slammed on the brakes. Jessica and Sharon screamed as they were thrown forward. "Ethan, are you trying to kill us?" Sharon shrieked. But Ethan didn't care. His breathing sounded like he was being strangled. "What did you say? The IRS? The lease? Stay right there. Don't let them take anything. Tell them I'm the CEO. I'll take responsibility." "They said you're not the CEO anymore, sir," his secretary sobbed. "You were removed by the majority shareholder 10 minutes ago. Your email access has been revoked. You have no authority here anymore." The phone clattered as it fell from Ethan's hand. I could hear it hit the center console. Silence. There was only the sound of the relentless rain against the windshield, and Ethan's choked, gasping breaths, as if the oxygen inside the spacious Escalade had suddenly run out. "This can't be happening," Ethan muttered, his voice trembling violently. "This is a nightmare. It's impossible for everything to fall apart in one night." "Ethan, say something. What is going on?" Sharon shook her son's shoulder. "What does she mean, you're not the CEO anymore? What's going to happen to us? You haven't even sent me my monthly allowance yet." "Mom, can you just be quiet?" Ethan exploded again, his voice hoarse with unshed tears. "We're bankrupt, Mom, bankrupt. The investors are gone. The office is seized. I'm fired. Everything is gone. We have nothing." "Bankrupt?" Jessica shrieked. "What about my trip to Aspen next week? I already promised my friends." "Are you kidding me, Ethan? I can't cancel. That would be so humiliating." "You're worried about a vacation?" Ethan laughed, a hysterical sound of someone who had lost their mind. "We don't even know what we're going to eat tomorrow, Jess. The credit cards are dead. The bank accounts are probably frozen. This car is leased in the company's name. They'll be coming to take it back any minute now." I closed my eyes, savoring this symphony of destruction. How fragile their lives were. They had built their castle on sand, relying on money and power that wasn't theirs, all while trampling on the very person who provided it all. Suddenly, Ethan mumbled to himself, like someone waking from a trance. "Wait." Mr. Coleman said the primary guarantor's recommendation was rescinded. The guarantor was Mr. Davenport. A beat of silence. Ethan's brain, dulled by years of arrogance, was finally starting to connect the dots. "Davenport," he whispered. "Davenport Holdings. Olivia. Actually, Prost." "What are you talking about, Ethan?" Sharon asked, confused. "What does that poor orphan Olivia have to do with the billionaire Davenport? It's just a coincidence. It's a common name." "It can't be a coincidence, Mom." Ethan's voice rose again, this time filled with sheer terror. "All this time, I've been landing easy projects. Permits were always approved. Funding always came through. I thought it was because I was brilliant. But every time there was a problem, Olivia would just say, 'I'll pray for you.' And the next day, the problem would be solved. Her full name. It's Olivia Davenport on her ID, but I never cared because the name seemed so plain." "You mean—" Jessica's voice trembled. "Our Olivia is part of the Davenport family? The ones who own half the skyscrapers in this city? The ones who own the mall we were just at? She must have told her father. Ethan slammed his fist on the steering wheel again, this time with a soft, defeated thud of regret and fear. Today, I threw $20 at her. I told her to take the bus, in the pouring rain, right after she gave birth to a Davenport heir. "We're dead," Sharon hissed. Her arrogant tone was gone, replaced by the terrified whisper of an old woman. "If she's really a Davenport, we're finished. Ethan, those people are powerful. They could make us disappear from this city without a trace." The audio feed captured Sharon's broken sobs, soon joined by Jessica's fearful crying. Ethan was silent, but I could picture his ashen face as he stared out at the wet streets of New York. He had just realized he'd thrown away the gold mine that had been sleeping next to him. He had just woken a sleeping tiger. I turned off the tracking app. That was enough. I had heard what I needed to hear. They were now on their way to the apartment, thinking they at least had a roof over their heads for the night. How pitiful. They had no idea that the surprise waiting for them in the lobby would be far more painful than a declined credit card. Cardboard boxes filled with their designer clothes were already waiting. Tonight, the dark New York sky would be their roof, and the cold night wind would be their blanket of regret. The MTA bus finally reached my stop. I stood up slowly, carrying my peacefully sleeping baby. The rain had subsided to a light drizzle. I stepped off the bus with a steady heart. My steps were no longer pained or faltering. The physical agony seemed to have vanished, replaced by a new strength. I was no longer Olivia, the abused wife. Tonight, I had become Olivia Davenport again, and this game was far from over. I leaned back against the plush passenger seat of the Rolls-Royce Phantom my father had sent to pick me up. The silence inside this car was so profound and calming, a stark contrast to the storm of emotions I had just endured on the crowded MTA bus. My father's personal driver, Daniel, navigated the rain-slicked Manhattan traffic with practiced ease. In my hands, a large tablet displayed a real-time feed from a security camera. Yes, the game wasn't over. I wouldn't miss a single second of their downfall. Mr. Harrison, with his usual efficiency, had already gained access to the security cameras in the lobby of the apartment building where Ethan and his family lived, an apartment whose lease had been paid by my father's company without Ethan's knowledge. Through the high-resolution screen, I was the sole audience member for the most satisfying reality show imaginable. The tablet showed the opulent lobby of a luxury building in Midtown. Its Italian marble floors gleamed under a massive crystal chandelier. Normally, Ethan would stride through this lobby with his chin held high, giving the concierge an arrogant nod, as if he owned the place. But tonight was different. Ethan's black Escalade pulled up to the glass doors. On the screen, I could see his stiff posture as he got out. He didn't go straight inside, but paused, rubbing his face roughly, as if gathering his last scraps of courage. The light rain had plastered his expensive, now wrinkled shirt to his skin. My mother-in-law, Sharon, emerged from the passenger side. Her face, usually glowing from expensive spa treatments, was now puffy and tear-streaked, her mascara running in black rivulets down her cheeks. Jessica followed, still glued to her phone, probably blocking the flood of hateful comments on her social media. They walked into the lobby. I turned up the volume on my tablet to hear the audio from the microphone at the reception desk. Ethan approached the automated security gate that separated the public lobby from the private elevator bank. He took out his key fob and tapped it against the sensor. Beep. The indicator light flashed red. The turnstile remained locked. Ethan frowned. He tapped it again, harder this time. Beep, beep, beep. Red again. Damn it, Ethan cursed, his voice echoing in the quiet lobby. Why is every piece of technology conspiring against me today? Now what, Ethan? Sharon asked wearily, slumping onto a plush sofa in the waiting area. I'm exhausted. I just want a hot shower in my bed. Don't tell me the elevators are broken too. It's not the elevator, Mom. The key fob isn't working, Ethan said, his voice laced with panic. He rubbed the fob against his pants, as if trying to wipe away some imaginary dust, and tried again. Still nothing. A security guard who was standing near the door approached them. This was the same guard who always greeted Ethan with a deferential nod, but tonight his gaze was cold and professional. Behind him, a familiar figure emerged. Mr. Henderson, the building manager. "Good evening, Mr. Williams," Mr. Henderson said, his tone flat, devoid of its usual sycophantic warmth. "Evening, Mr. Henderson. Good thing you're here," Ethan said, forcing a smile. "My key fob seems to be malfunctioning. Could you open the gate for us manually? My family and I are very tired." Mr. Henderson didn't move. He crossed his arms over his chest, a clear signal of bad news. "I'm afraid your fob isn't broken, Mr. Williams. Your access was intentionally deactivated as of 8 p.m. this evening." Ethan stared, dumbfounded. "What do you mean, deactivated? I'm a resident here. I pay a hefty maintenance fee every month." "That's precisely the problem, sir," Mr. Henderson said, pulling out his own tablet and showing Ethan the screen. "According to our records, your unit, 35B, has 6 months of overdue rent. A guarantor has been covering the late fees, which is why we haven't taken action. However, this afternoon, we received official notice from that guarantor, Davenport Properties Incorporated, that they are rescinding all guarantees and terminating the lease agreement under the name of Ethan Williams." My heart skipped a beat hearing my father's company name spoken aloud. I could see the color drain from Ethan's face. His legs looked unsteady. "Wait, hold on," Ethan stammered. 6 months? But the rent is always auto-transferred from my wife's account. My wife handles all of that. "I'm not privy to your domestic arrangements, sir. All I know is that the funds were not received, and the guarantor has terminated the contract. As per management policy, when a primary guarantor withdraws due to a breach of contract, the unit must be vacated immediately." "Vacated?" Sharon shrieked, jumping up from the sofa, her eyes wide with disbelief. "What do you mean? You're kicking us out? In the middle of the night? Do you have any idea who my son is? He's a CEO, a wealthy man. You can't do this." Mr. Henderson looked at Sharon with a condescending pity. "Ma'am, your son's CEO status is irrelevant when the rent isn't paid. And I'm sorry to say, the vacating procedure has already been completed." Mr. Henderson gestured toward a dimly lit corner of the lobby near the emergency exit. Piled there were about 10 cardboard boxes. Worn brown boxes stamped with the logos of instant noodle brands and bottled water, starkly out of place against the 5-star luxury of the lobby. The rain hadn't stopped by the time I arrived at my parents' estate on the Upper East Side. The mansion stood majestically on a full city block, its ornate, 10-foot-high wrought iron gates separating our world from the chaos of New York City. White marble columns supported a grand portico, and a sprawling, manicured lawn featured a large fountain at its center. I entered through a side gate to avoid attention and went straight to my childhood bedroom, which the staff had already prepared. My mother's personal stylist and makeup artist were waiting. "Oh, Miss Olivia," cried Mrs. Gable, the head housekeeper who had helped raise me, her eyes welling with tears as she saw me in my simple hospital dress. "Are you all right? Where is the baby? Let me take care of him." "The baby is fine, Mary. He's in the nursery with his nanny," I replied with a faint smile. "Right now, I need your help. I have to look perfect in 30 minutes. In a short time, a transformation occurred. The plain dress and cheap cardigan were gone. I was now wearing an elegant, champagne-colored silk gown that draped gracefully over my body, still comfortable for my post-op condition. My hair was styled and swept up, and my face, once pale, was now touched with subtle but powerful makeup that concealed the dark circles under my eyes and brought out an aura of class I had long suppressed. I gazed at my reflection in a large, gilt-framed mirror. The character of Olivia, the mousy housewife, was dead. Standing here was Olivia Davenport, the sole heiress to a formidable business empire. "What's their status, Harrison?" I asked over the intercom. "They've just been dropped off by a taxi at the main gate, ma'am," Mr. Harrison reported from the security post. "A taxi, not an Uber Black." I smiled grimly. A yellow cab. The bumpy ride must have been its own form of torture for Jessica's delicate sensibilities and Sharon's inflated ego. "Keep them at the gate. Let them wait outside for a bit. Let them enjoy the cold New York night, just as I did this afternoon." Meanwhile, outside my family's colossal gates, Ethan, Sharon, and Jessica stood shivering. Their clothes were soaked. Jessica clutched her drenched designer handbag as if it were a life raft, while Sharon complained ceaselessly about her back aching from the taxi ride. The pile of cardboard boxes containing their worldly possessions had been left on the sidewalk, as the cab driver refused to bring them inside. "Are you sure this is the right address, Ethan?" Sharon asked, craning her neck to look up at the towering gates. "This is a palace. This must be a senator's house or something. There's no way Olivia knows anyone who lives here. She was probably just making it up." "I'm sure, Mom," Ethan replied, his teeth chattering. "Right after we got married, she let it slip once that her aunt worked as a maid at number 88 on this street. She said if we ever got into trouble, we could come here for help." "Her aunt is a maid?" "Figures," Jessica sneered. "No way her poor family owns this place. They'll probably make us use the back entrance and give us leftover scraps." "I don't care, Jessica. I'd eat scraps right now. I'm starving," Sharon whimpered. Ethan pressed the buzzer next to the gate. A security camera swiveled to focus on their faces. "Yes?" A gruff voice crackled from the speaker. Good evening, sir," Ethan said nervously. We're relatives of Olivia. Is she here?" There was a long pause. "Olivia? I don't know anyone by that name. Maybe she works here or lives here?" Ethan was unsure what to even call me. "One moment." They waited for 10 minutes that felt like an eternity. The night wind cut through their wet clothes. They stood like beggars before a king's castle, a perfect mirror of how they had treated me at the bus stop, only this time they had no dignity left. Suddenly, the massive iron gates began to slide open with a quiet, hydraulic hum. "They're opening," Jessica cried hopefully. "They're letting us in. Thank God I can't feel my feet." They started to step forward, expecting a butler with warm towels. But their hopes were dashed as the brilliant headlights of a car blinded them from within the estate. A magnificent, pearl-white luxury car was gliding out toward the gate. Not just any car. It was a Rolls-Royce Phantom, the ultimate symbol of wealth, something Ethan couldn't even dream of owning. Ethan, Sharon, and Jessica stepped back instinctively. They assumed the owner of the house was leaving. Ethan, that must be the owner," Sharon whispered excitedly, trying to fix her matted hair. "Let's flag them down, ask for help. Maybe they'll take pity on us." "Don't embarrass us, Mom," Ethan hissed. But it was too late. The car stopped directly in front of them. The tinted rear window slid down silently. All three of them held their breath, preparing to put on their most pitiful expressions. Sharon was even ready to kneel. The window opened completely. Seated inside was a young woman in an elegant gown, her face illuminated by the car's soft interior lighting, her gaze cold and piercing. In her lap, a tiny baby slept peacefully, wrapped in a silk blanket. Ethan's mouth fell open, but no sound came out. His eyes bulged as if they were about to pop from their sockets. Jessica covered her mouth with both hands, stifling a scream. Sharon staggered backward, bumping into a gatepost, her face as white as a ghost. The woman in the luxury car turned her head slowly toward them. The corners of her lips curled into a terrifying, cynical smile. "Olivia!" Ethan hissed, his voice barely a whisper, lost in the sound of the rain. I looked down at my husband, my ex-husband, from my elevated position, scanning his wet, dirty shirt, his mud-splattered pants, and his face etched with utter despair. "Good evening, Ethan," I greeted him, my voice soft but as sharp as a razor. "What are you doing in front of my house so late at night? Weren't you busy enjoying a steak dinner?" Your house?" Sharon stammered. Her legs gave out, and the next moment, the perpetually arrogant woman collapsed onto the wet asphalt. She didn't faint. She was simply too shocked to stand. "Yes, Sharon. My parents' house. The house I grew up in before I made the biggest mistake of my life, marrying your son," I replied calmly. "Olivia, honey." Ethan tried to approach the car, his hand trembling as he reached for the door. "This is all a misunderstanding. I can explain. I didn't know. Please forgive me, Liv." Daniel, my driver, gave a short, sharp honk of the horn, making Ethan jump back. "Don't touch my car with your filthy hands, Ethan," I said coldly. "You might damage the expensive paint job, or the leather seats might start to smell musty. Remember what you said this afternoon?" Those words hit Ethan harder than any physical blow. He remembered his exact words as he cast me out of his Escalade. His face flushed with a shame that was far too late. "Olivia, please!" Jessica started to cry, this time with genuine fear. "We have nowhere to go, Liv. We were evicted. The car's been repossessed. We're starving. Please, just let us in. We're family, right?" "Family?" I laughed softly. What kind of family leaves their newborn nephew out in the rain at a bus stop? What kind of family mocks their sister-in-law on social media? I looked at Daniel. "Drive, Daniel. The air out here is starting to smell like garbage." "Yes, ma'am." The window began to rise. "Wait, Olivia, don't leave us! Olivia!" Ethan screamed hysterically, trying to chase the car as it started to move. He ran a few steps, then slipped on the slick pavement and fell face first onto the asphalt. I didn't look back. Through the now-closed window, I saw their 3 diminishing figures in the side-view mirror, 3 wet, cold, broken people in front of a palace whose gates were now closed to them forever. Tonight, I would sleep in my warm, comfortable bed. As for them, let them learn that karma never misses an address. I didn't make them wait outside like beggars for long, not out of pity, but because there was one final act to be played out before my father. On my command via the intercom, security opened a small side gate, not the grand main entrance, and ushered Ethan, Sharon, and Jessica into the estate grounds. I was waiting in the main drawing room. This room was the heart of the Davenport mansion's opulence. The 20-foot-high ceiling was adorned with a classical European fresco. A half-ton Swarovski crystal chandelier hung in the center, casting a golden glow across the room. The Carrara marble floor was cool and majestic beneath our feet. I sat on a velvet maroon armchair, my legs crossed elegantly, holding a steaming cup of chamomile tea. Beside me stood my father, Mr. Davenport, the man Ethan had only known as a distant business associate and a mysterious guarantor. My father wore silk pajamas and a dressing gown, yet he radiated more power than when he was in a full business suit. The drawing room doors opened. 3 soaked, shivering, and filthy figures entered hesitantly. They looked minuscule in the magnificent room. Rainwater dripped from their clothes, staining the white marble floor that was likely worth more than Ethan's lifetime earnings. "Don't sit!" My father's voice boomed, low and sharp, as he saw Sharon about to lower her wet body onto a cream-colored Italian leather sofa. "That sofa costs $200,000. I won't have your filth ruining it." Sharon froze, half-crouched, then straightened up, trembling. Her face was ashen, her lips blue with cold. Jessica stood behind her mother, hugging herself, her eyes darting around the room in a mixture of awe and terror. Ethan took a step forward, his eyes red, his limp hair plastered to his forehead. He looked at me, then at my father. "Mr. Davenport." Ethan's voice was hoarse and broken. "So, it's true. You're Olivia's, her father," my father cut in sharply, "and the owner of the company that has been feeding you, your mother, and your sister for the past 2 years. Ethan's legs buckled. He dropped to his knees on the hard floor. The reality hit him with the force of a physical blow. The man he had taken for granted, who he thought was just some connection his wife had, was in fact the king behind his entire comfortable existence. I'm so sorry, sir," Ethan stammered, his tears mixing with the rainwater on his face. "I honestly didn't know. I swear, sir, if I had known Olivia was your daughter, I would never have." "Would never have what?" I cut in coldly, setting my teacup down with a soft clink that echoed in the silent room. "Never have treated me like trash? Never have cheated on me? Or never have told me to take the bus right after having my stomach cut open?" Ethan looked at me with a disgusting, pleading gaze. "Liv, honey, I made a mistake. I was just emotional, stressed about the business. You know I love you. We've been together for 2 years. Liv, remember our good times." "Which good times, Ethan?" I asked flatly. "The time you cursed at my cooking? The time your mother threw away my clothes because she thought they were too provincial? Or the time your sister stole my grocery money to buy skincare products?" Jessica flinched as her name was mentioned. "Liv, I didn't mean to." "You will be silent," my father barked, his voice so commanding that Jessica immediately fell silent and looked at the floor. My father strode forward to stand over the kneeling Ethan. He tossed a thick folder in front of him. Its contents spilled out: bank transfer records, copies of property deeds, credit card statements. 2 years, my father hissed. For 2 years, I stood by and watched you enslave my only daughter. I gave you startup capital. I gave you an apartment, a car, connections. I hoped that with all those advantages, you would cherish my daughter. But what did you do in return? You became an arrogant parasite. Sharon, who had been in a state of shock, suddenly burst into loud, wailing sobs. Realizing her world had ended, her survival instincts kicked in, and she did the most humiliating thing possible. She crawled toward my feet. "Olivia! Dear Olivia!" Sharon tried to grab the hem of my gown with her wet hands. I pulled my leg away in disgust. "I'm so sorry, dear. I was wrong. I promise I'll change. I'll massage your feet every day. I'll take care of my grandson." "Yes, my grandson. Where is he?" "Grandma wants to see her grandson." Hearing the word grandson, Ethan seemed to find a sliver of hope. He looked up, his face desperate. "Yes, Olivia. Our son. He needs his father. You can't raise him alone, without a father figure. For our son's sake, Liv, let us stay here. I'll be your driver, your gardener, anything, just to be near my son." I looked at the three of them, 3 pathetic humans who, just hours ago, were laughing at my suffering in a luxury restaurant, now begging like stray dogs caught in a storm. I stood up slowly and walked toward Ethan. "Our son," I repeated in a low voice. I bent down slightly, looking directly into his eyes. "When I was holding him in the pouring rain at that bus stop, what did you consider him then, Ethan? A piece of trash?" Ethan was silent, his tongue leaden in his mouth. "You said the leather seats of your car were more valuable than your newborn son. You said my son and I smelled of blood. You threw a $20 bill at my face in front of everyone." My voice began to tremble with suppressed emotion, but I did not cry. My tears had run out. "Now that you know he is the grandson of a billionaire, the sole heir to the Davenport fortune, now you call him your son. Now you call him your grandson." I straightened up, looking down at them with a gaze that could freeze hell over. "You are not our family. My son does not have a father like you, nor a wicked grandmother like your mother." "Mr. Harrison!" I called out. The head of our security appeared instantly from a side door, followed by 4 burly guards. "Yes, Miss Olivia. I quietness. Escort them out," I ordered firmly, "and make sure they take nothing from this property, not even a speck of dust. If they ever come within 100 yards of this estate again, report them to the police for trespassing and harassment." "Understood, ma'am." "Olivia? No! Olivia!" Sharon shrieked hysterically as 2 guards lifted her to her feet. Jessica cried in terror as she was pulled away. Ethan tried to resist, clinging to the leg of a table, but the guards were much stronger. He was dragged across the marble floor, leaving a dirty, wet streak behind him. "Olivia, I'm your husband. You can't do this. This is domestic abuse. I'll sue you," Ethan screamed, delirious. My father laughed cynically. "Go ahead and sue. My lawyers would be delighted to countersue you into oblivion." "Oh, that's right. You're broke." Their screams and cries faded into the distance, then disappeared completely as the front doors were shut and locked. Silence returned to the grand room. I let out a long, slow breath. The heavy weight on my chest felt as if it had been lifted and cast out with them. My father walked over and wrapped a warm arm around my shoulders. "You were magnificent, my dear," he whispered. "Forgive me for letting you suffer for so long. It's all over now." I leaned my head on my father's shoulder. "It's not over, Dad. This is just the beginning of my new life, the beginning of the real Olivia's life." End quote. That night, for the first time in 2 years, I slept soundly, free from anxiety, insults, and from Ethan. 3 years later. New York was still the same, congested, sweltering, and filled with clashing ambitions. My position in it, however, was entirely different. I no longer viewed the city from the window of a crowded MTA bus, but from the back of a Bentley Mulsanne gliding smoothly down Park Avenue. On my lap, my son, Evan, now a bright 3-year-old, was busy with an expensive toy robot. He was healthy, intelligent, and handsome. Thankfully, he had my father's eyes, not the eyes of that traitor. "Mommy, look! Mommy's on the big TV!" Evan exclaimed, pointing his little finger out the window. I glanced where he was pointing. We were stopped at a traffic light near Times Square. There, on one of the giant digital billboards, a segment from an exclusive Forbes interview was playing. My face was plastered across the screen, smiling confidently under the headline, Olivia Davenport, Woman of the Year, from the ashes to the apex of Asian American real estate. In the clip, I was discussing my new company's philanthropic arm, which provided legal aid and startup capital for female victims of domestic abuse. I smiled at the sight. For the past 3 years, I had worked tirelessly to prove I was more than just an heiress, but a leader capable of multiplying our family's fortune. Then, my eyes caught something else at the base of that massive billboard, a contrast so sharp it seemed orchestrated by fate itself. On the sidewalk, among a group of Uber Eats drivers waiting for orders, one figure stood out. He was sitting on a beat-up scooter, one of its mirrors broken. His green delivery jacket was faded, grimy, and too big for his now skeletal frame. His face was caked with street dust, his skin tanned and leathery from the sun, and his hair, which he once styled meticulously with expensive pomade, was now matted and prematurely graying, though he was only in his early 30s. It was Ethan. He wasn't looking at his phone for his next delivery. He was staring up at the giant billboard, his gaze empty, his mouth slightly agape. A cheap cigarette dangled from his rough, blackened fingers. Even from this distance, I could see the expression on his face clearly. It wasn't anger or hatred. It was a look of profound, bottomless regret. The look of a man who realized he once held a diamond in his hand and had thrown it into the gutter to pick up a pebble. I saw his lips move, as if he were whispering my name. His eyes looked glassy. He wiped at them with the dirty sleeve of his jacket. Maybe he was remembering the past. Maybe he was remembering sitting in that luxurious restaurant, laughing at me. Now, I was on top of the world, while he was fighting the hot asphalt just to afford a cheap meal. The news I occasionally received from Mr. Harrison confirmed their lives were in ruins. Sharon had suffered a minor stroke after they were evicted from a tiny rental apartment for non-payment and now spent her days on a thin mattress in a housing project on the outskirts of the city. Jessica had married a local thug after getting pregnant and was now trapped in the same cycle of abuse she had once cheered on her brother for perpetrating against me. And Ethan, the family's fragile backbone, was drowning in payday loan debt, a slave to the gig economy with no future. "Mommy, why is that man crying?" Evan asked innocently, following my gaze. I turned my eyes away from Ethan and looked at my son, stroking his hair gently. "He's not crying, sweetie. He just got some dust in his eye. Dust from a past he built himself." The traffic light turned green. "Let's go, Daniel," I instructed the driver. My car moved forward smoothly, leaving Times Square, the billboard, and Ethan behind still frozen, staring at the face of the ex-wife he could never reach again. I felt no pity. That emotion had died long ago. All that remained was a sense of peace. Justice had been served, not with a sword, but with success. And that was the sweetest revenge of all.